Hello everyone, I'm SP, and this one might be a little deep. Or not, that's up to you. Anyhow, iDubbbz has been so gracious to grace us with his presence again, and this time it's an overview of that Olympics drama from like 2 months ago. So there was this boxer that everybody was saying was trans, had punched the ever-loving crap out of this other boxer, and well, I don't want to spoil the video for you.
I'm about to beat this up.
I have some insight on the situation, and so I can kind of comment on some things that iDubbbz says in his video that we'll be reviewing, but for the most part, I'll let him do the explaining and me do the learning. I want to thank you all for being here. I think I've been battling a nasty cold. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I never wanted to stop uploading or anything, so once again, thank you for being here and supporting me through this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, and let's watch.
Hey, hang on, Carter. I think I know how to take this guy down. Among Us.
Alright, so we're gonna get started here. This, again, is an iDubbbz video. Again, I'm sick, so just bear with me. There was also a bird outside cawing. I think it's done, but we'll see. But let's get started.
People don't go into fighting that had great lives. And people don't do well at fighting that had great lives. So now I'm looking at this athlete. I don't imagine she was Miss Popular at school. I don't imagine a lot of nice things happened to her. But I do know the sacrifice that it would take to make an Olympic team, let alone to make the Olympic finals. You have no money. You have no job. This doesn't pay. But there is one payoff, which should you succeed, and only 3 of them will, gold, silver, and bronze, somebody somewhere will pat you on the back and tell you good job. She's an amateur athlete. She's gonna go fight 4 people this week and get nothing for it. None of you would have even known she was fighting. So now imagine you reach your goal, you sacrificed, you ate the SpaghettiOs, you lived 3 deep down in mom's basement, you did all of these things, and you brought honor to your country. And not only did somebody not tell you good job, which is the only thing you ever hope to get, they now do the opposite. And they tell you you're a man.
Now that's a way to put it. You know, already. That's already a way to put it. But like, yeah. First off, I didn't know you didn't get paid to be an Olympic boxer or Olympic athlete.
You think life for her gets better? This.
I love that he went for the Pauls and J.K. Rowling, who are like the massive, never mind, who are like already known as enemies of the trans community.
Such a terrible thing for her to have said about her. And it's not true. There is no test.
Those were like all of the major names people hate. They had the vice president nomination with Trump. They had Elon Musk. They had they had J.K. Rowling. Those are all the buzz names of right wingers. Even Charlie Kirk. Piers Morgan, Logan Paul, J.K. Rowling.
Oh boy. It might feel like a gender controversy at the Olympics is a very 2024 kind of issue, but we've always been obsessed with other people's gender. Like ever since the 30s, we were like pointing fingers at other countries saying, your women aren't like our women. Our women are normal. Your women are actually men dressed up as women. And as soon as that thought like permeated the globe, like we haven't been able to let it go. And now that people are trans identified.
Okay, well, before we get into that, that is very interesting to know that. But that is also like a no-brainer that something like that would be talked about. Is that somebody would say, hey, wait a minute, that's a woman. I mean, that's a man in a dress. That's not a real woman participating against women. That sounds very on par for the Olympics anyway.
Fine. It feels like all of it has like reached a boiling point. So the transgender women and even the cisgendered women, they're all getting shat on. It takes no prisoners. We got Alona Mar.
I always get these comments, but like recently it kind of ramped up. I get comments being called a man and being called masculine and asking if I'm on steroids.
You got Katie Ledecky also being called a man. You can rest assured that if you're a woman who's talented in sports, you're going to be called a man. You also have two...
That isn't. Well, let me finish.
Zambian football players who are targeted specifically by Australian news outlets.
There's two
Okay, but now before he gets to that, yeah, that is a thing. That has always been a thing. Is that if you're a woman with muscles, you are called a man. That has always been a thing. I actually remember. I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to call my twin sister a man just to mess with her because my twin sister was very tomboy and she had muscles growing up. So I feel bad for saying that, but I used to call my twin sister a man.
in the Zambian football team who played against the Matildas the other day.
Two of them are on the Zambian football team, and our Matildas went to play with them. You have to ask yourself, were you not a biological male, would you have scored twice against our girls?
What's even worse?
All girls are girls.
Yeah.
All girls are girls. All girls have long hair. All girls have XX chromosomes. The Matildas. We should rename the Matildas the XXs so they know that we're girls. And lastly, you have Lin Yuting of Taipei and Iman Khalif of Algeria, the two women boxers who are competing at this year's Olympics. As a professional boxer...
Before, I know I keep breaking into it, but before he even finishes, I just want to say, this situation, from what I've learned, from what I've seen on the outside, has been an exercise in right-wing misinformation. I don't like to sit here and say the right-wingers are the least informed people. I think everybody can be misinformed, but this was a very bad step in right-wingers looking like they're the ones who are more organized.
And boxing promoter and radical trans activist. I felt like this story was tailor-made for me. One of the first things that I discovered
Then why are you covering it 2 months late?
there were more people talking about Iman Khalif than the Olympic Dutch rapist. The
You're not even
celebrities
talking
who
about
decided
it.
to speak up on this controversy, they did not send their best. Stinky McFart ass, the fattest baby in the room, every member of the Paul household. I wrote down here, the family that seems like they might use the word bloodline one too many times in casual conversation.
I mean, you use the N-word, but that's okay. But yeah, he's going through everybody who's commented on this, and there's such... I always like to talk about buzzwords or loaded language, and this is loaded language.
Here's Morgan, Dilbert, Doug Dimmadome, Tutter Mouse from Bear in the Big Blue House. I was listening to him on a podcast with the Purple Otters, and they were saying all sorts of like awful transphobic shit. Yeah, so the wait's been long enough. Let's hear.
I don't know if that was a joke or not.
They let a transgender, there's apparently at least
Even
two
Joe Rogan.
transgender boxers that are fighting in women's boxing. What the fuck?
I don't understand.
You can't understand because you're not retarded.
Look at this. This is a man. This is a man.
That's a dude. And if it is a woman, a very ugly woman.
Khalif like
What the fuck?
slaps Karini in the chest, almost looks like Karini gets groped.
And you've got this disgusting piece of shit that tries to come over and hey, it's okay, it's okay. Angela Karini wants
Freedom
nothing
and
to do with
beer.
this guy.
They have no breasts. They are built like
What is her
men.
name? Megan
they are 5'10".
Kelly? Megan Riley?
The far left wants to allow biological males to beat the living crap out of women in boxing.
She got hit so hard she didn't know what the hell hit her. It's a person that transitioned. He was a good male boxer.
Congratulations to the male. Bravo on slugging that woman in a boxing match. Wow, you really proved how great you are at fighting by punching a woman in the face.
I gotta agree with Ben Shapiro's little sister looking chick. She did look a little bit like she got groped. I'm just saying that. But everyone else, yeah, they're very much showing they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
It's not obvious that these people are just fucked up.
Especially that guy.
They're really fucked up in the head. Like, I feel very fortunate to have not continued going down that path.
That's the high horse right there. That's him being on a high horse. Oh my god, get off your high horse, dude.
I do have to cut them some slack because it is difficult to find accurate news when the only way you find your news is by looking at Riley Gaines' Instagram.
They let a transgender, there's apparently at least two transgender boxers.
We covered this back with apparently.
Not transgender.
What are you talking about?
That's what it says.
They may be intersex. Riley Gaines posted it on her Instagram, failing gender eligibility tests. Okay, that means they're transgender, Jamie.
Getting your trans news from Riley Gaines is a very bad choice.
Isn't Riley Gaines trans? I'm gonna look that up real quick. Riley Gaines trans. Let me see. I don't know why I thought she was trans.
It's like reading the Jerusalem Post to learn about atrocities in Palestine. Imam Khalif and Lin
Of course, he had to throw that in there too.
Ting are not trans, and it's only an allegation that they're intersex. So when I talk about trans people in this video, it's meant to highlight the fact that the same tactics that are being used to dehumanize trans women are being used to dehumanize all women.
They have no breasts, they are built like men, they are 5'10".
If you don't fit into this very small box of what society has deemed a woman to be, you're going to be accused of being a man.
Well, okay, well look at it this way. Those are very unusual attributes for a woman to have. So of course there's going to be, unfortunately, there's going to be some questioning on whether this is a woman or a man. That's just kind of how it works. If you don't fit into the stereotypes. Stereotypes are a thing for a reason. Stereotypes and prejudices and shortcuts in the mind are things for a reason. And so if you don't fit them, of course people are going to be looking for the other answer. But the truth is, these women were women, or maybe intersex, which again is alleged.
Now, I know some of you haven't heard the full story of Imam Khalif at the Olympics, so I'll give you a brief overview, because if you listen to anyone from a month ago, they were talking about it like it's the season finale of Game of Thrones.
At 12:20, she went into the ring. By 12:22, we had an international disaster.
Iman's first opponent in this competition was Italian boxer Angela Carini. Now, Angela Carini is a good boxer. She's been boxing for many years and is obviously good enough to represent Italy. So the fight starts, and in the first 30 seconds, things are looking pretty basic, but you could tell that Angela Carini is outmatched. So after those 30 seconds, she goes to her corner because she has something wrong with her headgear. She needs to get her headgear readjusted.
I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the Pokemon noises are funny.
So after she gets her headgear fixed, she comes in, and not like 5 seconds later, she gets a cross to the face. Trump has been calling this a jab.
Well, she got hit with 2 jabs. A jab is not supposed to be that bad. 2 jabs, and she said, no more, I don't want, because she got hit so hard. She said, I've never been hit like that before.
By the way, I do think it's important to point out these...
I'm sorry, I've seen a little bit of this video, and here's where he says something kind of full of himself.
Small things, because I don't think it's small. It's a very malicious tactic that a lot of these fuckers use to downplay the skill and ability of someone like Iman and say that she's got man strength, and all it took was a jab.
A jab is not supposed to be that bad.
Just a little jab. It wasn't a jab. It was a fucking straight 2 to her face.
That's where I saw the video, and I saw somebody comment, and they're like, yeah, that was a jab. So that's the part where he seems a little full of himself, like a know-it-all.
That's what did it, and that's what any female boxer, any good female boxer would do. Makes me violent. So Angela Carini gets hit with the 2. She's like, ouch, that hurted. And she goes back to her...
And see, do you see how he talked about them dehumanizing or belittling Iman? Here he is belittling Angela for getting injured in a fight. Ouch, that hurted. Like, what?
All of these pundits and people commentating on it, they're saying all sorts of shit like how heartbreaking it is and how difficult it was to watch.
For me, my reaction when I saw that clip, I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. It's really ugly, and it's quite upsetting to see this boxer on the canvas crying about being absolutely pummeled.
And I was wincing as I was watching.
Yeah. I know. Look, to watch a woman get punched in the face is almost unbearable.
This shit was not difficult to watch. This was fine. It was not heartbreaking. It was literally boxing. Watching someone get knocked out cold, Anyone getting knocked out cold, that's a difficult watch. Some woman getting booped on the snoot and then
See, now he's belittling Iman. Booped on the snoot.
After Iman was declared the winner, normally people shake hands, but Angela Carini basically just denied the handshake. I'm genuinely uncertain of how many fabricated quotes there are of Angela Carini out there, because one of the first stories that I saw was from Fox News.
One more quote from the defeated Italian. Boxing is a sport that teaches you to have respect for the opponent. It cannot and must not become an abuse.
You can't be abusive like any sport. It has to be a vehicle for, I can remember, I can't understand the translation here, but
I don't know how these fuckers live with themselves. Yeah, I think the important part here is to say that it was an abuse, and I'll take out this part about it being a weapon in life, but only for defense.
You wanna know what I do?
No.
I'm not a woman, so
Not a woman.
circumstance could never happen. But if I was Carini, and they said, go into the boxing ring, the fight's gonna happen, I would put my hands behind my back, and I would stand perfectly still, and I would not move. I would not guard. I would not put my hands up. Or, I think they might require you to before the fight starts. I'd immediately put them down, and I'd put them to the side.
Ugh.
Put my hand.
Okay, so far this guy seems like a pussy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Tim Pool. I think that's what his name is, because this is the Tim cast. I think Tim Pool. But, you know, when they say men are typically stronger than women, they're not talking about you. I'm sorry.
It's behind my back. I wouldn't fight. I'd say, no, you can win. Yeah, but you're going to have to beat me defenseless. I don't play these games.
I used to think
Like
I was
what?
cool when I was a kid. I would consume a lot of TV shows and movies, and I do a lot of daydreaming and fantasizing about like what I would do in a specific scenario. Well, I do this, I do that, and then everyone would cheer for me. You build up like a fictional scenario. Bro really thinks that he would be the leader of like a civil rights movement, and that Iman Khalif would like have no thought in her brain. She'd just be an out of control animal, just continuing to punch someone who's defenseless in the boxing ring.
And I would stand perfectly still, and I would not move.
And the ref would just like look on in horror, and he wouldn't like stop you or break anything up. You'd just be like, oh no, like this is a child's thought. Why are you sharing that?
I thought that was dumb to compare that to a child. I think most people do that. Most people do hypotheticals in their brain, but okay.
Despite what Carini said about not wanting to make a political statement, just dropping to her knees and crying was enough to rile up the anti-trans community so that they could use this as another example.
2 transgender women boxers have now been given permission to compete in the Olympics.
At least 2 transgender boxers.
I don't know if y'all have been watching the Olympics, but I called this a while ago. This trans lie, we have to stop. A woman who got her ass kicked by some dude in 46 seconds.
It's unfortunate that Iman and Lin Yutang are specifically being accused of being trans, because it automatically plays into the dichotomy that if a trans person was competing, it would be a problem. And that's not necessarily the case. Sports federations all across the world.
Well, I'm not gonna. I don't really want to watch this part, but I guess I will, because there's a bunch of trans issues. I don't really speak on trans issues as a non-trans person myself, but I mean I am in the community.
Are figuring out what it means to have a trans athlete competing as a man or a woman. Each federation is deciding different things. Now I bring up these federations because the IBA is the Federation for Boxing. They are specifically the ones who have been working with the International Olympic Committee to put on boxing at the Olympics. Now, ever since, I want to say, the 2016 Olympics, there was some match fixing or accusations of match fixing, and the IOC and IBA have been butting heads. So Iman and Lin Yutang both competed in the IBA tournament in New Delhi in 2023, and they did well, but after the tournament, their sex test results came back. The sex tests for Iman Khalif and Lin Yutang both came back as XY. The argument that I'm making
Allegedly.
is that in the year of 2023, when these athletes competed and they were, targeted, sex tested, and stripped of their titles, there was no mention of gender eligibility in the handbook. In the letter that Iman receives from the IBA, It cites section 4.2.1 from the technical handbook. That section basically reads like, we reserve the right to make the final decision on a fighter's eligibility. Case closed, basically. And I just think that is so shitty. If you're going to go through the effort of...
I don't. If you're going to be at the... Like, if you're going to enter these rings and put yourself at the mercy of these, you know, conglomerates and these companies and these associations, organizations, then yes, they have the right to say, this is what we think. This is what we have to go by. Like, what?
Making a new handbook.
He wouldn't say this if this was about, like if this was about, I don't know, you're not allowed to compete because you're a Republican. He wouldn't say that. So, what?
Every year, and changing the rules every year. Clearly the rules mean something, or they should mean something.
Yeah, they do. So that's why they say things like, this is the end-all, be-all.
Because what's in the handbook for 2024 is basically what they did discreetly in 2023. And none of the fighters had that information. They didn't know what the gender eligibility
I don't believe that.
were. As far as they
I don't
knew,
believe
was
that.
be a woman. You can at least argue that if you waited for the following year where you established the definitions of the criteria,
mixing her up
that
now.
information would be publicly available to everyone, including the competitors, and they can make the decision for themselves. Do I want to risk this? A lot of these losers online have been thinking the smoking gun here is these athletes not appealing the decision that the IBA made.
But they had a chance to appeal, but they didn't. That's the bottom line, which means they're male.
Why did they not appeal that unfair ruling?
If you're about to fight in the gold medal round and they tell you you can't because you're not actually a woman and you are one, why the hell would you not appeal? It makes no sense. These two are male.
Hold up. Before he says something stupid. If somebody comes to me and says, you're not black, and I am, and their final ruling is that I'm not black and I am, I'm going to appeal that. So that is something to kind of look at and be like, well, why didn't you appeal? Unless they told the truth, or they made their final decision and you either agree with it or you just can't go on arguing anymore because they've made such a good decision. So I don't know what he's talking about here. But yeah, if somebody comes to me and they're like, you're not gay, well, there's my boyfriend. There's me and my boyfriend. Like, what?
Hate these people. The Court for Sports Arbitration is the high court for sports. Whatever decision they make is the final decision. To put your gender identity, your whole being, in the hands of a sports court is already a crazy thing to do. They aren't here to determine what is right, what is correct. They're here to determine what's fair, what they think is fair for the sport. They don't care that you've been competing for the past 8 years, the money you've spent, the time you've spent. Everything that you've done for the past 8 years is irrelevant to them because they can just look at your chromosomes and be like, you're a fucking man. Who are you appeasing and how are you rewarded at the end of the day for participating in that system? Piers Morgan
Yourself.
says if she's a biological woman, he's a biological...
I'm sorry, but yeah, you're appealing yourself. You're standing up for yourself. So I don't know what he's talking about here.
Look at this. This is a man. This is a man. And we don't care if they look like women. They have to actually be women. Look at this. We know this is a man. Eyes still matter.
So if these are the people you have to prove your womanhood to, is it really worth it? They clearly have already made up their mind. I don't think it's worth it. No, sorry, you're losers. The opinions of losers are not going to be considered.
Well, then you should stop considering yourself. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop myself.
One of the first stories I read is...
This is a dumb video. And it's not a dumb video because of because of its purpose. It's a dumb video because of its execution. I'm sorry, because it makes it hard. It's making it hard to agree with him. Because again, I agree. Iman is a woman and she should be allowed to participate and she should be allowed to win if she has. She's unfortunately she's built different. Unfortunately for her opponent, she's built different and she's allowed to compete. She should be allowed to compete. But just the way he's going about it, it's not right. I'm sorry. It's also very. It's hard to think when I'm so sick and it's very early in the morning while I'm recording this. But like, it's not the way he's going about this is not smart.
Ewa Klabukowska. Now, Ewa Klabukowska is a Polish track and field athlete. I think she's still alive today. But back in the 60s, when she was competing at the Olympics, she had to take a sex chromatin test. And that basically is a cheek swab, and she failed the test. Upon failing the sex test, she was stripped of all of her titles, essentially erased from the record books, and her results were publicized to the world. What's fascinating about Eva's story is after being banned from competing in women's sports, a year later, she gave birth to a son. Now, you might think that this gives her a lot of credit in the womanhood department.
You would.
But if you listen to someone like Riley Gaines,
if you have a Y chromosome, you are a male.
Based on their definition of what a man is,
because they tested XY positive, they're male.
A man got pregnant. What kind of excuse and cope would these people come up with?
If the DNA test comes back and says, sorry, you're a bloke, you can't compete anymore.
Okay, now we're in the 80s. We have Maria Jose Martinez Pateno. In 1985, she had forgotten her certificate of femaleness, so she needed to take another sex test. Unfortunately, she had failed this test. The Olympics sort of learned their lesson with Ewa. They basically said, like, to all the athletes who failed the sex test, they said, fake an injury so you aren't humiliated. 2 months after she was advised to fake an injury, she got a letter that classified her as a 46XY male. But because Maria is different, she's built different, she has
I said it first.
AIS, and that stands for androgen insensitivity syndrome. So any benefit that she would have gotten from testosterone would have been negated completely. She got dumped by her boyfriend. She was super worried that she had the same condition that had killed her brother years before. Through trying to pursue the idea of fairness, they have been so unfair to these women throughout time, and they haven't prevented any men from competing in sports. And it's not as if that would be the worst thing that happened. Like, if you're forcing a surgery on one of your athletes for them to be able to compete, that basically is like, we're the baddies. We're the ones doing the bad things.
Go straight for the Nazi call right there.
One of the arguments that I've seen floating around is, why should we accommodate such a low percentage of the population?
I very much think this person is a rarity,
Interesting
but I don't
scenario.
think you make exceptions for one rarity and put other XX women's health and safety at jeopardy.
We're not talking about one rarity when we talk about intersex people. We're talking about a portion of the population. These aren't people who are eventually going to go away. They're going to keep competing in sports, and they're going to keep showing up to the Olympics.
If you're dealing to being intersex, we're talking about 0.1% of the population. Okay, it's a very, very small portion of the population.
Otherwise known as 0.1%. It's not an accurate number. The number is actually 0.018%, but I'm here to challenge what you might think is a tiny portion of the population.
0.02, but okay.
Because people with the name Caitlyn actually make up 0.00136%. There are 13 times more people who are intersex than people named Caitlyn in the U.S.
0.000 point whatever of the population.
0.001% of people have Swyer syndrome, which means you have XY chromosomes, but you have all the normal female reproductive organs. Now let's compare that to 0.000124% of people named Megan with a Y. I could now kind of understand why Megan with a Y is pissed. Is because she wanted to be Megan with an X. Megxin.
0.01% and 2% of the entire global population.
People with androgen insensitivity syndrome make up 0.0035% of the population. To compare that to people named Piers, that would be 0.00007%. So you are 500 times more likely to be born with androgen insensitivity syndrome than to be named Piers. The reason I'm bringing up these percentages is because I think a lot of us have the tendency to like downplay and dehumanize people. when we think that they're essentially an insignificant portion of the population. They feel insignificant because you don't know anyone who's intersex. I mean, you've heard these people. They're saying XX chromosome woman, XY man.
Okay, well, before he finishes this dumbass point, a name doesn't affect your ability to perform in sports. So, like, that's a name doesn't affect your ability to perform in sports. That's all I'm saying.
And then you show them one of these intersex people, and their brain fucking explodes. They're like, what the hell? Like, I guess it's like a physical, like a biologically trans person. Like, they can't compute.
The whole thing is confusing to me. It's not trans. It's not the transgender athlete declaring themselves female. This is at birth, I guess.
It's not a choice. It's, I guess, you're born this way.
Mutation in the genes. Whatever.
Well, now that
Well, once again, it is a rarity, and so because it's a rarity, people are going to be a little taken aback and a little unsure and a little surprised and a little, not. It's not. I'm going to use this word, and I hate that I have to use this word. It's not normal. So because it's not normal, people aren't going to know how to react. And the same goes for being gay. It's not normal. So straight people who have never come in contact with a gay person, they don't know what it's like. And so they're a little, taken aback. Duh.
I can't say that it's a mental illness. I don't know what to do. This is like analog trans. This is acoustic trans.
He's so bullheaded. And it's like, bro.
Boxing is inherently a dangerous sport. You're punching another person in the face and they're punching you. So the boxers are well aware of how unsafe it is.
Oh, those women are all getting just completely
refs, the coaches,
torn up.
judges, everyone fucking knows that it is just an unsafe sport in general. What they don't need is random commentators online saying how unsafe it is to have someone like Imam Khalif competing.
Men competing with
Not
women
this guy
and
again.
destroying women's sports. What's it gonna take? It might take somebody dying.
She had never been punched like this before. Someone's gonna die.
This is about preventing a man from beating a woman to death.
Radical trans activists and those who support them are not going to be happy until a woman is dead. A woman is going to have to die for people to see reason and logic here.
I don't think that would stop it.
These people are talking a lot about death. I don't think any of them got the memo. There's a lot of deaths in boxing. I think they're being very dramatic because they see an opportunity to push their agenda and they're like, sweet, I've been...
You're looking for an opportunity to push your agenda. This video is frustrating. This is actually a very frustrating video. As someone who used to really enjoy iDubbbz's videos, this is very frustrating.
Complaining about men and women's sports.
Someone with a penis coming at you in the locker room. How about my daughter not going into a locker room and seeing a man's penis? He's showing off a penis in a locker room with his penis out.
Now's the example where I could say, okay, it's violent and it could lead to death. Maybe people will listen to me now. If you sign up for boxing, compete in boxing, you're consensually agreeing to beat the shit out of another person as they attempt to do it to you. So the fear that these people are trying to propagate on the general public is not a new fear. But guess what? All of those female boxers at the Olympics, they've been doing it for years. Angela Kini, just like every other female fighter, consented to fighting her opponent.
And shame on the IOC for not protecting the safety of women's sports.
I love this. Oh, well, too bad, so sad.
For women at an unfair advantage, but unsafe advantage.
It is up for a society to prevent the abuse of women, but we don't do that anymore.
Women getting injured in sport, women getting beaten in the boxing ring is not uniquely dangerous. A lot of these people just don't like it. It is very obvious in the way that they talk that they feel personally uncomfortable with it.
They're not talking about women beating up other women though. Unless Michael Knowles, I think that's Michael Knowles, has something to say about that just coming up now. They're not talking about women beating up other women. They're talking about biological men beating up other women. Not other women, but beating up women. They're talking about trans women beating up not trans women. And he's refusing to understand that.
Women shouldn't box.
See, He's saying women in general.
I can't watch it.
To watch
There
a
you go.
woman get punched in the face is almost unbearable.
Okay, they're saying women in general.
Violently punched in the head by a man.
See, she says by a
cannot
man.
Understate how
Which makes me feel like he cut out that part by the other people saying that.
despicable that is.
And that tells you all you need to know, because they don't see men and women as equal. That's just a fact. And that's fine, that is like their ideology, but they can't insert their opinion about women's boxing, because if it was up to them, women wouldn't be boxing, period.
Actually, some things are better left to the fellas, like catching blows to the head, and some things are better left to the women, like giving birth, for instance.
Megyn Kelly wants us to use our eyes
Eyes still matter.
for everything except her ability to box. Okay, so what the hell? So you want me to just very blatantly discriminate against someone and then close my eyes for the boxing? Because
Not
Iman's
white.
got fights.
What?
She's got 9 losses and only 7 knockouts. You look at Gervonta Davis's fight record and you're like, oh shit, what a knockout rate. I don't think I want an average professional boxer to go in the ring with this guy. You can make that argument, but no one's making the argument for him because they're like, they're all grown men. They can choose for themselves what they want to do with their lives. But when it comes to the grown women, they're like, nah, it's about time us men step in because this is now a men's issue. If you
Again, they're not talking about women in general. I feel like Michael Knowles might have been talking about women in general. But like those other 2 people, one of them even said woman getting punched by a man.
you guys want to know how to feel about Imam Khalif, look no further than the way these random men reacted as compared to women boxers who actually have fought Imam Khalif.
It was disturbing to watch.
To me, they've got blood on their hands because there was blood coming from a nose and it was a disgrace.
Would you be comfortable fighting against it?
I've already fought against a man, a hard fighter, and my last fight was against a man in the Netherlands in the final, so yeah. You just keep punching in the sport of boxing, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Logan Paul, WWE superstar, boxer, influencer, he yesterday said, "This is the purest form of evil unfolding before our eyes. A man will have to beat up a woman on the global stage, crushing her life's dream."
Very happy for Iman, weathered the storm and got what she deserved. This is sickening.
And he keeps going back to the pause.
I'm not afraid. We're evenly
that's a name.
matched.
Sorry, it's not more dangerous. The fights have concluded, and Iman kicked their asses, but it wasn't more dangerous. Oopsie. It's like your worst nightmare came true. After Logan Paul, Piers Morgan, and J.K. Rowling give their highly educated take on Imam Khalif, they get to go back to what they've been doing. Logan Paul gets to reskin Lunchables and sell them for millions of dollars. Piers Morgan gets to move on to the next news story. J.K. Rowling gets to write her next book about wizards who definitely don't experience gender dysphoria. Oh, by the way, Imam Khalif is suing Elon Musk and J.K. Rowling, which is
I mean, that's pretty
fucking
great.
awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty
I think
great.
that's about as much as I can contribute to this conversation.
You contributed nothing.
But if you enjoyed this content, I have at least 20 minutes of edited content that I'm going to upload on Patreon and on YouTube.
Well, I don't care anymore. Okay, well, that's enough of that. Now, I wasn't expecting all of that. That certainly is a lot to digest. But it's very interesting to see the change in iDubbbz. Because I'm pretty certain maybe 7 years ago, he wouldn't have even commented on something like this. Or if he did, he would have taken the South Park route and just really made fun of it. But I want to talk about my experience when iDubbbz made his pilgrimage from being iDubbbz to a bread tuber. I remember saying to somebody his little apology wasn't good enough. Take it from a black gay man, his apology wasn't good enough. And I say it wasn't good enough because he's going to lambast people for the exact same. He will lambast people for the same things that he's done. And he thinks just because he gave a little 2-bit apology, like that's okay. And so I told this person, I don't think his apology is good enough. And this person called me a white supremacist. And then I told them, go check out my channel and make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.